Maverick News. The world is watching. In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
The thing I think is that I'm seeing though is that they have everybody so discombobulated that we're all actually fighting against each other, thinking that we're fighting for some sort of a solution when in reality we're self-destructing.
I think so, because people like me and you are being brought closer together. You know, I feel the fact that we've talked to each other 4 or 5 times is a good sign that and the same with my own family members, you know, like I have a family member, I was going to tell Lori this, was really getting into all the media I like, right? You know, listening to Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter was the most interesting one. Like, he was with Scott Ritter 100% until Scott started talking about Israel and how Israel would lose from a military perspective. And then this family member who's listening, I love you, hello. I'd fight that guy in the street, that dirty, he doesn't know his Bible, and you can have your smarty pants, geopolitical, military, whatever, but the good Lord's gonna sort it out, you know. And it's just like, oh man, I mean, this is the issue, you know. I'm afraid to. I mean, it's weird to me, Rick. We're talking about like mass propaganda efforts. I'm not saying it's only the CIA, but I am saying if I was sitting in Langley being like, okay, now the left and the right on alternative media, you know, the kind of anti-authoritarian left and right, whatever that means, the alt left and right are coming together. What, dust out, get in the closet. We got an issue that, you know, we've researched. Is there any like golden oldie of division? Let's bring out Israel and Palestine. And I'm not saying that. But
what does the U.S. government have to gain?
What do they have to gain
by
from
creating all this chaos and anarchy in their own country to the point where it undermines the support that Joe Biden has in the White House?
May I say a word?
Sure.
If I could interject on my own show, gentlemen, no fighting in the war room. You know, if I were a Nazi, it's a mental illness, you know. We imported a lot of them into our CIA, into our special security services, into the British security services after World War II. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's a provable fact through actual declassified documents. Let's just say if I were a fascist dictator like, Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau, and I were looking to create a Fourth Reich, what would I do? I would glorify all the tenets of Nazism, except I would do it in such a way that people don't realize what they're being indoctrinated into. That's why I would maybe release a killer virus, and I would make people lock themselves in their homes. I would make them wear masks. I do wonder, you know, those kids that you see out there protesting Free Palestine, why are they all wearing masks outdoors? I mean, I thought we were all over COVID. Are all those kids scared of getting COVID? Almost every single one of them in the crowd had a mask on their face. What's that all about? But if I were looking to do a mass mind control op, an MK Ultra on their minds using this new medium of social media, then, you know, these same kids, a lot of these woke, dumb kids that were out waving the Free Palestine flags in Times Square last night and trashing police cars, They were the same kids that were out marching for BLM in 2020. They were the same ones who believed that vaccines should be mandatory and that the unvaccinated should be excluded from all public places and from society. That's kind of Nazi. And then a year later, less than a year later, those same kids were out there waving the blue and yellow Ukraine flags and going, Slava Ukraini. But they didn't realize that they were actually being taught to glorify Nazis. And since we went to war in Ukraine, we're seeing a huge explosion of white nationalism and Nazism and the glorification of the Azov battalion, the struggle against big bad Russia over there, and the Arab cause, the cause of Palestinian liberation. What I'm about to show you is not propaganda. This is actual history. You can go verify it for yourself. But I don't glorify the Banderites because they were Nazi collaborators. I don't glorify the Ukrainian struggle against Russia because I understand that Ukraine is a Nazi nation. And I do not glorify the struggle of Palestinian liberation, not the more radical aspects of it. And here's why.
The Blue Dawn Conference of September 1937 in Syria publicly asserted that the Holy Land question was the concern of all Islam. It was more than a coincidence that the only representative of the world press was that of DNB, the official news agency of Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy provided material and ideas to the Arabs. It was the time of Hitler's rise to power, and his minister of propaganda, Goebbels, sent messengers to Iraq to launch an anti-Jewish campaign. Hitler's Mein Kampf was translated into Arabic and distributed all over the Arab world. The Nazis' final solution to the Jewish problem well suited Amin al-Husseini, Mufti of Jerusalem and president of the Supreme Muslim Council. At a rally in Berlin, he declared, "The Germans know how to get rid of the Jews. We should learn from them." Eight months after Munich, a frightened Britain under Neville Chamberlain restricted Jewish immigration to Israel in exchange for Arab support and Arab oil. Jews from Arab countries could no longer escape to Israel. The borders were sealed. In Iraq, the Arabs had no more need for subtleties. A pro-Nazi government was formed. Nazi swastikas were seen all over the streets, hinting that the time had come to eliminate the Jews. In June 1941, the Jewish quarter of Baghdad was the scene of a massacre. Hundreds of Jews were killed, thousands injured.
But Lori, they say, don't tell them about the history. We're busy trying to rewrite it. We're busy trying to relive it, to repeat it.
History suggests that the comparisons between the modern anti-Semitism fueled by pro-Palestinian sentiments and Hitler's anti-Semitism are no coincidence. Meet Haj Amin al-Husseini. According to author David Dallin in his essay, Hitler's Mufti, quote, "It is possible to trace modern Islamic anti-Semitism back along a number of different historical and intellectual threads, but no matter which one you choose, they all seem to pass at one point or another through the hands of one figure, Hitler's Mufti, Haj Amin al-Husseini, the viciously anti-Semitic Grand Mufti of Jerusalem and a leader of Muslim fundamentalists in Palestine, who resided in Berlin as a welcome guest of the Nazis throughout the years of the Holocaust." As David Dallin writes, From his earliest years, al-Husseini was a ferocious opponent of Jewish immigration to Palestine with an unrelenting hatred of the Jews and the British. His career as an anti-Semitic agitator and terrorist began on April 4, 1920, when he and his followers went on a murderous rampage, attacking Jews on the streets and looting Jewish stores. He was subsequently convicted by a military tribunal of inciting anti-Semitic violence that resulted in the killing of 5 Jews and the wounding of 211 others. On August 23, 1929, al-Husseini led a massacre of 60 Jews in Hebron and another 45 in Safad. In late March 1933, al-Husseini contacted the German Consul General in Jerusalem and requested German help in eliminating Jewish settlements in Palestine, offering in exchange a pan-Islamic jihad in alliance with Germany against Jews around the world. On November 28, 1941, Husseini met for the first time with Adolf Hitler. As another author has correctly argued, quote, al-Husseini owes his place in history to this meeting where he offered to raise an Arab legion to help carry out Hitler's extermination of the Jews. Quote, it is hardly accidental that the beginning of the systematic physical destruction of European Jewry by Hitler's Third Reich roughly coincided with the Mufti's arrival in the Axis camp. Joseph B. Shetman pointed out in his 1965 book, The Mufti and the Führer. Quote, the Mufti's close ties to Hitler and his total embrace of Hitler's final solution, concludes another author, provides the common thread linking past to present. At the Nuremberg trials, Adolf Eichmann's deputy, Dieter Wislencini, was even more explicit. Quote, the Mufti was one of the initiators of the systematic extermination of European Jewry and had been a collaborator and advisor of Eichmann and Himmler in the execution of his plan. He was one of Eichmann's best friends and had constantly incited him to accelerate the extermination measures. This is a quote. I heard him say that, accompanied by Eichmann, he had visited incognito the gas chamber of Auschwitz. On his visit to Auschwitz, al-Husseini reportedly, quote, admonished the guards running the gas chambers to work more diligently.
There are already photos of the Grand Mufti, Hitler, and Himmler circulating the internet, but the Nazis in these photos are less high profile. Kedem speculates that they include Arthur Seyss, Inquart, the Austrian Reichskommissar of the occupied Netherlands, Fritz Groba, Germany's ambassador to Iraq, and Iraqi politician Rashid Ali al-Gailani. Allegedly, the Grand Mufti's ties to the Nazis pressured the British to oppose Zionism during World War II under fear that the Arabs would side with the Axis powers.
What a vile figure. But alas, that was just the beginning. As David Dallin also writes, quote, after the defeat of the Axis powers, Haj Amin al-Husseini escaped indictment as a war criminal at Nuremberg by fleeing to Egypt, where he received political asylum and where shortly after his arrival, he met the young Yasser Arafat, a teenager then living in Cairo. Arafat's mother was the daughter of al-Husseini's first cousin. Arafat soon became a devoted protege of the Grand Mufti, who brought a former Nazi commando to Egypt to teach Arafat and others how to fight. In 1969, for example, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization run by Arafat, recruited 2 former Nazi instructors, Erich Altern, a leader of the Gestapo's Jewish Affairs section, and Willy Berner, an SS officer in the Mauthausen extermination camp. In a major address as recently as April 1985, Yasser Arafat said he took, quote, immense pride in being the Mufti's student and emphasized that the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, quote, is continuing the path the Mufti set. Arafat, of course, is the man who became the leader of the Palestinians and rejected Israel's offer, many offers of a Palestinian state. According to historian Robert S. Vistricht, quote, there is currently a culture of hatred in the Arab Middle East which has not been seen since the heyday of Nazi Germany.
But Lori, they say, that was a long time ago. The Arabs, you know, they don't believe in that Nazi stuff anymore. They dropped it. They don't really want to kill the Jews. They want to live in perfect peace and harmony with their neighbors. I got to tell you, folks, in Gaza today, in the Palestinian Liberation Movement today, Adolf Hitler is looked upon as a hero. The Grand Mufti of Palestine, Amin al-Husseini, who was one of the biggest Nazis you've ever seen, is still looked upon as a hero. And today in Gaza City, of course, with the bombing campaign, I don't know if this place still stands, but there are two, not one, but two clothing stores called Hitler. There's Hitler 1 and Hitler 2, and they cater to the young men of fighting age who go there to get their cool battlefield clothing and their weapons. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this.
اسم المحل هتلر، وانا بحبه يعني من كتر ما هو كان اكتر واحد معادي لليهود، لانه ظلمونا ويعني اخذوا حقنا، كل حقنا اخذوه في البلد، يعني ما خلوناش اشي. يعني احنا الحين بس نروح نموت احسن، احنا عايشين من قلة الموت. وعجبني كمان يعني اللبس، هو احلى حاجة فيه اللبس، والاسم يعني تبعه روعة. لا مكشف.
أنا والله كنت شفت الإعلان هذا على الفيسبوك، أجيت حبيت أشوف المحل لأنه السكينة والكوفية والهذا صار رمز من رموز انتفاضة الأقصى، وحبيت يعني أجي على المحل وأشتري منه، عجبتني يعني الفكرة إنه قسم مساندة مع أهلنا بالقدس والضفة يعني وعجبتني يعني الفكرة كلها.
أنا مارق بدي أشتري أواعي، فلفت انتباهي المحل انه بيعبر عن رمز الانتفاضه في الضفه، ويعني هذه الشغلات مسانده لاهلنا في الضفه، قصه السكين والكوفيه واللتمه، حاجات حلوه تلفت الانتباه، ويعني اشي حلو ومميز كمان، حاجات حلوه كتير.
Obviously, I should point out, if you hadn't figured out by now, that video is a couple years old, but not much has changed. The only thing we don't know for sure is if those two stores are still standing. I would guess not. After the recent airstrikes, they're probably a pile of rubble, but that philosophy does live on. And something else people might not know about the Grand Mufti, Amin al-Husseini, was actually a close cousin of Yasser Arafat. After World War II, he was spared prosecution at Nuremberg, evacuated to Egypt under cover of Western intelligence services, and protected for the rest of his life. The PLO and Arafat was mentored at his feet. He taught Yasser Arafat everything that he knows. And I'm telling you that it is relevant. What happened in World War II is still relevant today, perhaps even more relevant than a lot of these stupid young people who don't know history even realize.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.